Good evening, everybody. You're very welcome back to the Agri Motor Farm Machinery YouTube channel. First off, I just want to apologise. This video was supposed to be out on Sunday morning, but we had a very busy weekend. Anyone that's following our 165 restoration will know that we've been busy painting the bonnets and stuff like that. So we had a busy weekend at that. Not to mention the disappointment with the rugby. So yeah, we're only getting to put this video out now. Last week we spoke about the use of hydrogen as an alternative fuel in internal combustion engines, and how the likes of JCB and Cummins, among others, are they're pushing hard. They're testing and trying to get this technology out there into the wider market as an alternative to, I suppose, electric in the future, where diesel and petrol will be phased out. Hydrogen is going to be an alternative to electric. So we spoke about everything around that, infrastructure around that. So this video in particular is going to be about the differences between a hydrogen engine and a diesel, your standard diesel engine that say you would have in your, let's take a JCB. So I'm going to deal specifically with the JCB end of things, because they seem to be the ones that I can get the most knowledge from, the most information from, and they're pretty out there with, discussing with people what they've been doing and how their testing has been going. To avoid any confusion between different brands, I'm going to deal with what JCB are doing here and the differences between their diesel engine and their new hydrogen engines. So first of all, I suppose for those that don't know a diesel engine, how it actually works. So a four-stroke diesel engine. So what is a four-stroke engine? So inside the cylinder, you've got to create the combustion. You've got the whole cycle. You've got four strokes. So in this particular engine, you've got four cylinders. So we'll take cylinder number one. So your first stroke is going to be your induction stroke. So that's when the piston in the cylinder starts to come down. So as it comes down, it creates a vacuum and it draws in air. And if the engine, and in this case, which is equipped with a turbo, air will be forced into the cylinder. So the inlet valve opens, the piston comes down, draws the air in, and then as it goes round the bottom, it's coming up on its second stroke, which is going to be its compression stroke. So the valves are going to close, inlet valve is going to close, your exhaust valve is going to be closed. Your pistons start to come up, so it's coming up and up and up and up, and it's compressing all that air within the cylinder into a very small space. So on a diesel engine, your compression pressures would typically be up to about 35 bar. So that's very high in compared to, say, a petrol engine, which would be someplace between 10 and 15 bar. So that's where you get that diesel knock from. You get that harsh, rough sound from a diesel engine. It's because you're dealing with much higher pressures. That's why diesel engines are much heavier and stronger, and why you can get such good torque and efficiency out of them, because they're using so much air. So as it comes up, it's compressing the air, the piston gets to near the top of the cylinder, and then to create the explosion, if you want, the combustion inside the chamber, the air that's all been pressed together, the molecules have created friction, they've all been rubbing against each other, you've got great heat in there, and then the diesel injector will inject atomized diesel, a very specific amount of atomized diesel into the cylinder at the correct time, at the right time, and that will cause it to basically explode. So you're going to have an explosion, a combustion event inside the chamber, and just as it comes back over top dead center, the pistons come up, you've got an explosion, and then it's going to force back down. So that's your last stroke then, that's your power stroke. Sorry, that's your third stroke, your power stroke. So as that piston is forced back down, the piston is connected to the conrod, and the conrod is connected to the crankshaft. So that turns that linear motion, that up and down motion from the piston through the conrod down into the crankshaft, that causes the crankshaft to turn in a rotary motion. So your piston and your conrod are going to turn linear motion into rotary motion, out the crankshaft, out the flywheel, through your clutch or your gearbox or whatever, sending power to hydraulic pumps or to a gearbox differential and out to your wheels eventually. So that's basically how the four-stroke works. So you've got your third and your power, and then your fourth one, your final one is, as we should all know, the exhaust stroke. So your exhaust valve is open. It could be one or two valves if it's a 16 valve engine, your piston is going to come back up and it's going to force that air back outside, out into the exhaust system. So I suppose the difference between that and the hydrogen engine is there's no difference. So the hydrogen engine works in the exact same principle. The principle is the exact same. So you've got a 4-stroke cycle. The difference is, if someone asked me, how much of a difference is there between a diesel engine and a hydrogen engine, there's as much difference as there is between a petrol engine and a diesel engine. The characteristics of a hydrogen engine and a diesel engine are the same. So what JCB are saying is they are getting the same power output, the same peak power and the same torque at the same RPM out of their hydrogen engine as they do in their diesel engine, and we'll explain why in a few minutes. So let's just look at our diesel engine for 1 minute. So what have we got? We have obviously our bottom half, our crankshafts, top half, our cylinder head with our valves, and then we have a diesel injector. Now we have a glow plug then, obviously for cold start in the morning, so where you'd heat the chamber up, and you have a diesel injector, and when your diesel is injected in, atomized, that's what causes the explosion. It's different than in, say, a hydrogen engine. A hydrogen engine is more like a petrol engine. So what happens is you don't have as great a compression pressure. Now, JCB haven't given exact figures, but they've said it's less than a diesel but more than a petrol. So if our diesel is a 35 and our petrol is between, say, 10 or 15 bar, we can only assume that their hydrogen engine is probably running someplace in the 20s, which is high enough. That's a high enough pressure. So we have to remember that 1 bar is equal to 1 atmospheric pressure. So all the air around us now is at 1 bar of pressure, at sea level, that is. So when you're at sea level, the air around you is at 1 bar of pressure, 14.7 psi. So in the hydrogen engine then, we've got the exact same 4 strokes. So we've got the piston coming down, it's the inlet valves are opening, it's coming down across bottom dead center, inlet valves are closing, exhaust valves are closed, piston's coming back up, it's pressing that air. When it gets to a certain point, the hydrogen is injected. Nothing's going to happen at this point. So the hydrogen is injected. It's obviously going to be in a gaseous vaporous form. And then we've got what we have in a petrol engine, a spark plug. Now we know with petrol engines especially, as opposed to diesel engines, to get the timing right, it's a lot easier. It's a lot easier to get the exact time when that ignition event occurs, because our petrol and our hydrogen is a lot more flammable than our diesel. So the flame spread within the cylinder will happen an awful lot quicker. So that is the reason why JCB can get the characteristics that they need. They can get the timing absolutely spot on perfect with a hydrogen engine, because the event can happen so quickly. Whereas in a diesel, you've got obviously great pressure inside in the engine. That in itself creates a barrier to the flame to spread. Diesel then burns slower, it's not as flammable. So from the point of injection to the point of your full combustion is a longer period of time. Now we're only talking milliseconds, but still it happens a lot quicker in a hydrogen engine and in a petrol engine. So the characteristics are there of the diesel engine, but it operates a lot more like a petrol engine. So any of you that are maybe familiar with cars from the past, say the 70s or 80s, I suppose, you know that you had a carburetor and you'd choke, and it was always, I suppose, a bit of a wrestle to try and get that fine point in the morning when it's, just trying to get enough fuel and starve a little bit of air, and then you might get some pinking if you've got bad fuel in it, or if the spark plugs are gone bad or whatever. You might get a pink or a pre-ignition. A lot of these events going on. Those things were a worry in the start with hydrogen, but because they've learned so much about it in the last couple of years, and they've developed the right sort of materials in the pistons, so the materials in the pistons and in around the cylinder head and the valves, and that is different material than what's in the diesel engines to prevent things like pinking. Now the engine does run a little bit cooler, so that's one way that they've managed to avoid any. We spoke the last day about the possibility of NOx, so that's NOx, nitrogen oxide gases from a hydrogen engine. Now that was a worry, because all around us is hydrogen. Like the air around us is 70% hydrogen, and if you burn air hot enough, you will create nitrous oxide, and that's what happens in a diesel because you've got such high pressure and such high temperatures. We create nitrous oxide. But the engineers in JCB, it seems, have done a fantastic job with, the materials that they're using, with their software that they're using in their control units, their valve timing in their engine, everything that they're doing within that space to control all those events. And they're saying that the engine runs pretty much exactly like a diesel engine. An operator can get into the cab, he can drive it, and he'll only know that he's driving something other than a diesel is when he goes to refill it. Sounds a little bit quieter, is a little bit different sort of a sound. It doesn't have that rough, harsh sound that a diesel engine has. But other than that, driving it, the characteristics, the power, the torque, low down, maximum torque at 1250 RPM, and that's fantastic. And that is ideal when it comes to working, say, a load and shovel or backhoe or something. You just want it run just above idle. That's where you want your maximum torque. You don't want to be at the top end of the rev range, putting damage through your pumps and your transmission system and stuff like that. So from what I can see, they've done a fantastic job on developing that end of it, the actual nitty gritty of the, what's happening in that combustion process. One other thing, then you have no NOx, you have no CO2. So because of that, you have no EGR valves, you have no low pressure EGR, you have no high pressure EGR. You've got no SCR, so you know select catalyst reduction. You've got no DPF. You've got no AdBlue tank. You've got no AdBlue injectors. You've got no NOx sensors. You've got no pressure sensors in the exhaust. All you have coming out the back of the exhaust pretty much is water. And anyone that's worked on or is familiar with modern diesel engines for the last 4, 5, 6, 7 years, tier 4, tier 5 engines, AdBlue, DPF blocked, it's just a nightmare. So you have none of those involved with these. You have no after combustion treatment within this engine, and that's fantastic. The modern diesel engines, as you can see from the diagram, there could be a system on that from the EGR valves to the DPF, SCR, NOx, AdBlue. When you add up the cost of all that together, it can be €15,000 and more. Anyone that's had to replace an AdBlue tank or a DPF or SCR will know what the cost of these things are. So what they've done is, in my mind, is fantastic. Moving on from that then, I suppose, looking towards the fuel tank end of things within the engine, the fuel tank itself is operating on their machines at 350 bar. Now that sounds a lot, but that's the same pressure that a normal hydraulic system will work at. Gas cylinders will all run at similar pressures to that. It's not a huge pressure. Hydrogen on cars would be running a lot higher than that because you're dealing with less space, so they need to squeeze it even more to get the capacity into it. So the tanks themselves are a lot of steel, carbon fiber, aluminium wrapped in carbon fiber, and you have also got plastic wrapped in carbon fiber. Now the pressure that they're dealing with within the tanks is going to depict what level of strengthening is needed, obviously, and that's par for the course. Like, that's understandable. So within the tank then, when you're reading, say, what level your tank is at, you don't have a fuel gauge, you've got a tank pressure. So as your tank pressure decreases, you know that your level of hydrogen within the tank is decreasing. So you have no pump in the tank to pump the hydrogen to the engine as you would have in a diesel system, where you'd have a low pressure fuel pump that would take the diesel from the fuel tank to the fuel system to the higher pressure end of things. So you have to think of it like if you've got a balloon in this hand with a certain pressure in it, and you've got a balloon in this hand with a lower pressure in it, you're decanting from the high pressure to the low pressure. So if I open the valve in the high pressure one, it's going to let the air out, keep letting the air out until the air inside the balloon is at the same pressure as your atmospheric pressure. So all it's doing is opening a little valve. It's got a regulator that will regulate the flow of hydrogen to the engine, and it's the pressure within the tank that delivers the hydrogen to the business end of things at the engine. So from 350, the pressure will keep coming down until it's, when it's depleted, it'll be zero, but obviously you're not going to let it get that low. So yeah, it's using the pressure that's in the tank to deliver the fuel to the engine. The same principle then will apply when you are filling the hydrogen tank on the machine. So the hydrogen will come in a Bowser. So at the minute, JCB have their fast tracks with a Bowser built onto the back of it. It comes, it plugs in, it opens a valve. It's at 500 psi, and obviously from 500 psi, it can pressurize the tank within the tank within the machine to 350 psi just by opening a valve. You set the pressure that you want on your machine end, and it'll cut off and it gets to 350 psi. So there's no pump. You just open a valve. There's no pump. It's just pumping from one to the other, and it's as simple as that. You don't need to be hooking up cables. Nothing. It's simple, and it's all done within 5 to 6 minutes. Time it takes to boil a kettle, but not the time to drink the tea. That's what JCB are saying. So looking from what I can see, it's fantastic. The downside at the minute is obviously the infrastructure around delivering the hydrogen, getting the infrastructure to have it on site, getting countries on board. I know from the research that I've done, the United States and India have pretty much signed a pact saying that they want to get hydrogen down to $1 a kilo within the next 10 years. And if that is the case, well, then it's cheaper than diesel. At the minute, hydrogen is, I think, around $15 a kilo. The last time I checked, it's around $15 a kilo. Now 1 kilo is equivalent to about 3 litres of diesel. So at the minute, it's not financially viable. Within reason, under different circumstances, it's not really it's not viable at the minute because it's multiple times more expensive than diesel, but the engines are more efficient than diesel. So but countries have come together and they are planning, they want to have diesel down to within $1 a kilo within the next 10 years. And if that happens, this technology will take off. JCB themselves have committed to making 200 hydrogen engines a day from their plant in the UK and from their plant in Jaipur in India. The Indian government, because India has no gas, no natural resources of their own, they buy in all their energy. They really are pushing this hydrogen fuel. So yeah, look, that's it from the engine point of view. The differences are minimal. The hydrogen engine is more like a petrol engine than a diesel engine, but the characteristics of a hydrogen engine are more like a diesel engine, how it operates and how it runs and its power. Anyone can work on it. When you look at it, it just looks like an engine. It looks like a petrol engine. I've seen it. It's got coil packs. It's got injectors. There's no real fancy, sophisticated EGR systems, emissions control systems that you would see around a diesel engine. There's none of that on it. It looks a lot more simple than a modern diesel engine. It looks, when it's sitting on a bench, it looks like a big petrol engine, just with a different fuel. It's just something that people are going to have to get used to. I really, really hope that government's getting bored with this and that this technology is driven forward. I don't think on my notes I have really anything else. I think I've covered everything. So yeah, if anyone has any thoughts on this, good, bad, or indifferent, I would like you to leave a comment and tell me what you think. I will be keeping an eye on this very, very closely. I will do another video maybe in 6 months' time just to see where things are at, especially with JCB, and I know Cummins are pushing it forward as well with their agnostic engine, and Liebherr as well. They're working on their hydrogen engines as well. So so that's it for this week. I will have a short video out possibly Friday. I will have none over the weekend. I have my little girl's christening at the weekend, so this weekend is taken up with family stuff. I will have a short video out before that. I'll have a news roundup maybe on Friday. So until the next one, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you all soon. Cheers.